Hello and welcome to this week's Senior Phase Assembly. From a week when we can't seem to escape from the very depressing and troubling news on the television and the media about horrendous discrimination and racial injustice around the world, it's timely then that we should spend a few minutes just reflecting upon ideas of equality, celebrating diversity, and thinking about identity and all the issues around those particular topics. I think it's extremely important that we address those this week. And our theme for the week, as you'll have seen with your tutor materials, is LGBTQ History Month. And we're going to be celebrating, along with a range of other institutions this week, celebrating the diversity that comes under this umbrella. If you don't know, the acronym LGBTQ stands for the lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans community, but an important part of that acronym actually is the Q that comes on the end, because this is all about questioning, and this is the important part of what we call our identity, and the right for each person to be able to question their identity is actually critical for our society to function in the way that it does. If you think about that term identity, we are all from day to day hundreds and thousands of different identities, each of us. When we walk out onto the street, we are a pedestrian. We step onto a bus, we're a passenger. We walk into a shop, we're a customer. We purchase something, we're a consumer. And that could be within just the space of 5 or 10 minutes. So our identity as a citizen is constantly fluid and constantly changing. And it's important that we recognise that all of the things that we are in any one day or from any one time don't actually define us. That actually what does define us is that we are a member of the human race, we are a citizen, and we have an equal place alongside everybody else in society. So it's really important that we're acknowledging those particular issues today. So our identity is made up of a hybrid of different things, and it's important that we are able to also celebrate the multitude of identities that we share. And these can differ from person to person, and we don't all experience the same feelings and attractions in the same ways. So it's very personal to each and every one of us. And we should never feel pressurised to label our identity. It's okay to question and reflect upon our identity from time to time. So we've spoken about the different ways in which people can identify, and we've looked at the labels in which we can position ourselves. But as I say, this is all feeding into a much bigger identity, and that of being a citizen in society. What's important, however, about LGBTQ Pride Month is that this is an annual fixture now that is has a very important place in cultural events all across the world, and is recognised by millions of people, all celebrating the great, fantastic, diverse culture that we are able to achieve together. And I just want to show you a little clip of the typical kind of celebrations that take place in London every June. So you can see there the celebrations, the fun, the enjoyment that everybody has in coming together to celebrate diversity, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing for us to see. If a little bit of history about where all this started, this actually took place, the key historical event, took place in Manhattan, in New York, in America, in the 60s, a pub called the Stonewall Inn. It was a place of refuge, actually, for people who were involved in lesbian, gay and trans relationships, because they were kind of marginalised at the time and not really accepted into society. It was a place for them to congregate and be together and celebrate that diversity. But it became, unfortunately, a place of targeted abuse and so on. So lots of very uncomfortable situations for people involved in that particular movement. And actually what happened then eventually is that with all these injustices, that they get exposed and things move on and things progress, which is hopefully what we will see from everything that we are experiencing at the moment. But I want you to think this afternoon about the idea of supporting each other when we consider issues around diversity and identity, because it's so important to understand that each of us, regardless of our identities, are able to support one another. And a really powerful story actually is from Gareth Thomas, which we're going to just have a quick watch in a moment. If you don't know who Gareth Thomas is, he's an extremely successful rugby player, played rugby for the Welsh national team, and his story about his struggle with his identity and how he overcame those struggles is really powerful for us to watch.
The sport we play, rugby, represents us on a huge scale. So to do it and to be living a lie, I suppose became really confusing. 3 million people of a nation, all wanting to be captain of Wales, all wanting to be me, yet me wanting to be any one of them 3 million people. In the middle of a field, in a big game or the heat of the battle, it is vicious. A broken nose or a broken finger is just a scrape. All you can kind of hear is the noise of people being winded, of bones being broken amongst this 30 crazy people vying for a rugby ball. The battle I was going through personally, compared to the battles on the field, were probably 10 times worse. I was physically strong, yet mentally so weak and so afraid. I wanted to be totally open and honest with everybody, yet I didn't want something so minor as my sexuality to define who I was. To hide that secret from the team, it was horrible. That team becomes like your family, the closest thing to you. If the crowd and the fans and the people of Wales ever found out, then I always worried about everybody would turn their back on me, and they gave me something so positive, yet I couldn't give them something so simple as honesty. I got to a point where I couldn't sleep, I couldn't blink. I had this fear of the dark all of a sudden, so I needed at some point to find the strength to be able to tell the truth to people. And it was the moment when I played the one and only game I felt where I never was able to try. I've lost everything else in my life, and now the one thing I've done is I've lost myself within this team. And when I finished that game, I remember just being unable to stop crying. I think it was like a sign of desperation. Coach had come along and spoke to me. He went to look me in the eye, and when he asked me what the matter was, I managed to think to myself, is that the door has been opened and there's this slightest bit of light coming through. Now I either close that door or I boot it open as hard as I can, and I just take the consequences of what's going to be on the other side. And I told him. I didn't have to say I'm gay, it wasn't all about that, he knew. He said to me, you can't go through this alone, and these people love you. I just felt this overwhelming protection from everybody. In my mind, I'd built rugby as something that was so against everything I was, that their reaction of just tapping me on the shoulder and kind of just saying, let's have a beer and get on with it, was almost in a way I was like, is that it? Seriously, is that all you got to say? Didn't you want to chat? And they're like, it doesn't matter. We want the Gareth Thomas back. We want the rugby player, the guy to lead us. That's what's more important to us. I know I've come through the hardest and toughest of times. There's absolutely nothing that could ever defeat me. Anything else that comes my way in life, if I can't handle it myself, then I can just go back to my teammates and they can help me get through it. I've done something that not many people can do, and that's as a child have a dream and grow up to be able to achieve it. And I'm very proud about my rugby playing career, but more proud of the fact that Wales supported me to play rugby, being Gareth Thomas, being the person that I am 100%.
So why are we celebrating it this week? Well, we want to make sure that our academy and our community is absolutely committed to equality and diversity. We want our academy to be inclusive of all identities and all groups. We won't tolerate any bullying or discriminatory behaviour or language towards anybody. We are absolutely committed to that. And for LGBTQ Pride Month, we want everybody to be a visible ally to all identities, and that means that we're there to support each other. One of my proudest moments since arriving at Belfairs actually was participating with Mrs Hughes, Mr Zwijstra there and Mrs Williams with our Belfairs Gender Equality Club. Last year we were represented at the Southend Pride Festival in June of last year. We were the only school, and remain the only school in the local area to be represented at this event, and I'm extremely proud of that. And it says a lot about our values in the academy, about where we feel our important views are held on this particular issue. And I'm very sad that this year we won't be able to participate in an event in a physical manner because, of course, of the situation that we're all in. But again, it's important that we continue to commit to the diversity that's on celebration here. So how can we make sure that we're going to be good allies? Well, it's about being visible, it's about being supportive, and it's actually about challenging any discriminatory language or discriminatory behaviour that we see others engaging in. We must always challenge that. Think about the people in your immediate experience, in your tutor group, in your year group, in the academy as a whole. If there are anybody that you think you could be a support to, and how you might go about doing that. People in the public eye who have made statements and who have become very powerful allies for members of the LGBT community are here on the screen. And these people have actually challenged discrimination, have actually offered support to people around issues of equality and diversity. And I just want to finish by sharing a brilliant quotation from Nelson Mandela, one of the leading figures in the last 100 years who spoke out for equality and to celebrate diversity. So this month is a time that we celebrate diversity, equality and identity. But remember, this should be recognised and celebrated every day, because as human beings we have the right to be what we want to be and who we want to be. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you soon.